let's grab Aaron, who is listening in Vegas. Hey, Aaron.
Hi.
Hey, what's going on? You're on the air.
Hey, okay, I have a question. I want to know if you personally have any inside information on the band Saraya. I know you're going to say it's the same story with all the 80s bands. There's no fan base, no support. But I've Googled them. I don't know what happened to them. I mean, they had 2 amazing albums, and, there's no solo projects. They're not even doing casinos. They're just, they're gone. Do you know any of
they
them?
had
Do you know
two, but hold on a second, Aaron. They had 2 records, neither of which were successful. Neither of which had a hit single, neither of which sold any real amounts. So, and that was over 30 years ago. So what would they possibly be able to do now in 2019?
Well, okay, I disagree that they didn't have a hit single. I mean, the first album, Love Is Taking Its Toll, was huge.
Hold on, Aaron. Now, I'm just playing devil's advocate with you. When you say huge to you at that time because maybe a local station played it. Huge meaning chart-wise, it wasn't even close to huge. Sales-wise, not even close to huge. It was not even a moderate-size hit single. A huge song, if somebody has a huge hit single 30 years ago, that song now would be played on classic rock radio every couple hours. 0 songs from that band are played on classic rock radio. So again, I'm not. I like the band. I'm just giving you the straight story here from the business side of it. It not even close to huge. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, then a lot of musicians, just for the passion of their music, they keep going regardless of sale. I was just surprised that they didn't continue to do anything. So I was just wondering, because you know everybody. I just want to know if you have any inside information.
What I've been told, well, here's what I can tell you. Because I like the band, don't get me wrong. But I'm just giving it to you from a business standpoint because as fans, sometimes we don't see the whole picture. So you're living in a time and you're probably listening to still those 2 records regularly and you still love them and that's all great. But that's 3 decades ago when the people that made those records were in their 20s and those people are probably now in their 50s and they didn't make any money in the music business outside of very small pockets like yourself. Nobody has even heard of that band. So there's not really much they can do. Now, what I do know is that I think that one of the guitar players in that band was Tony Bruno. Am I right with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's gone on to do some stuff. If you Google him, he's played with some people and still does. But the focal point of that band was the singer, Sandy Saraya, and she's from New Jersey. And my understanding with her is that she retired from the business many, many years ago, got married, had kids, became a mom, and has completely moved into a completely different phase of her life. Now, that being said, a few years ago, I'm pretty sure someone told me that there was some talk about her starting to want to sing again, but I don't know if that ever transpired into anything. Okay, that's cool. That's all I need to know. Yeah, some of those guys, Aaron, if you Google the members of the band individually, you may find that they are playing with other people and doing other things. I think Tony Bruno may have even filled in playing some guitar in Danger Danger at one point recently on some festival shows. But some of these guys will pop up and play for fun or what have you. But it's just the viability of a band like that really having any opportunity to tour and play and get audience is virtually impossible. It's just there's just no audience for them. It's just really tough.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate the call, and I thank you for listening. And the thing about it is, and here's what I'll say about Saraya, that's one of those situations where it should have happened. That's a head-scratcher for me because that band had the goods. Sandy Saraya was a great singer. The band was great. They had 2 albums on a major label. For their second record, they were managed by Q Prime, which is one of the biggest management companies to this day in the world. Metallica. Back in the 80s, they managed Metallica, Def Leppard, Tesla. I mean, it goes Queensryche. It goes on and on and on, all the bands that they managed back in the day. So they were part of that management stable. They had a major label record deal. They put 2 records out, and they both flopped, especially the second one, which was really good. And the song that he was talking about that he erroneously said was huge, the closest they came to a hit was a song called Love Has Taken Its Toll. Again, great song. But you guys have to understand, when I talk like that, really, really bluntly about this stuff, it is nothing to do with whether I think the band is good or the song is good or whatever. I'm just giving it to you straight, which so few people do, about where things are at in the business for these bands and the viability of them touring or playing shows and drawing people. Nothing to do with whether they're good or not, or the song is good or not. But nobody wants to go out there in a van on a Tuesday night and play to 22 people for no money. They move on with their lives. It was a moment that was 30 years ago to them. To you, it's still like yesterday because you listen to the record every day. I get it. But there's a lot of people that can't understand. When I say people, I mean fans that can't understand or come to grips with artists who move on and do something completely different in their life and abandon music. But it happens all the time. Not everyone is in it for life. So, and the other thing about, who was married to Sandy Saraya for a little bit was Brian Wheat of Tesla. Because Brian actually, for a brief time, lived in New Jersey because that's where that band was based. That was, again, years ago, over 20 years ago. I'll play the closest Saraya came to a hit. I'll play it for you when we get back into music in a second, after I play some new Sammy Hagar as well. Couple more calls here. This is Greg, who's in Florida. Go ahead, Greg.
Hey, how you doing, Eddie?
Great, Greg.
Hey, I got a question that when you just finished playing the rocker from Thin Lizzy, and for me that don't sound like the original one. Is that like a remake?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I played it out of the system here. It wasn't labeled as a remake or anything, but to me it sounded like the real deal.
The reason why I'm asking, because the music sounded too damn rich, and the original one don't sound that rich. That version sounded too much like the version on the Life album, which was their Farewell Tour album, which had everybody from Eric Bell all the way up to John Sykes play on that album. And that was a farewell album, and that version sounded too much like the version on that Live album.
No, I'm aware of that Live album, Greg, but to me, that was the studio version. I didn't hear any applause or anything like that. It wasn't labeled as live. I think maybe it just, maybe it was remastered, maybe over the radio, some compression added to it. It sounded a little different coming out of your speakers, but to my knowledge, that's the original studio version.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, Greg, thank you. Appreciate you listening. Let's talk to Jody, who is in New York. Hi, Jody.
Yo, how you doing, man?
Good. You're on the air. What's happening?
I'm just wondering the movement of the electronic drums. What are you thinking of that? Do you think that's going to go mainstream? I mean, you can have an electronic drum set now that looks like a traditional drum set. You don't know the difference.
Well, what do you mean by electronic drums? You mean like drum pads as opposed to actual acoustic drums?
Right, yes. But they look just like acoustic drums. I have a set.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I'm going to push of a button. I have 50 different kits and 50 different gears of music and everything else I can do with it, And guitars that kick in on it and guitar, slides and stuff that kick in with just playing the drums.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old school, Jody. I like guitars to be plugged into amps. I like drums to be acoustic and mic'd. I like bands to actually be playing live and singing. So call me crazy, but that to me is a live show. But I know. But here's the thing, that there are a lot of drummers for years that have what appear to be regular drum kits, but actually what you're hearing is not really what they're hitting on those drums, that they're all triggered. That's been going on for years. There's something going on with guitar amplification too, where people aren't using amps and they're plugging right into these electronic devices that they can just dial up their sounds. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to Andrew Stockdale, who's the guitarist and singer in the band Wolfmother. He was on my show earlier today on Volume. And again, that'll replay tonight at 9 o'clock on 106. And I was talking to him off the air. And he was getting ready to go to his gig tonight. He's playing tonight here in New York City. And I said to him, I'll let you get out of here because I'm sure you got to get to a sound check, because we were talking in the hall a little bit. And he said to me, he goes, yeah, but it's way easier now. I said, how so? And he said, well, because, and they actually do play all real and live, but he said, I have this device where for being on the road, I carry just this little head and it's got all my sounds in it. I just plug into that. And I was like, really? I said, he goes, yeah. And the guys in Def Leppard have the same thing. They showed me, it's called a fractal, and they plug right into what looks like maybe no bigger than a receiver for a stereo, and all their sounds are dialed right in, and then that goes right out into the board. For me, again, I like loud buzzing amps on stage, but I get the convenience of it, especially for a guy like Andrew, who lives in Australia and just ran through New York for 4 quick shows. It's easier and more convenient, but I do think there's a danger in sanitizing it and taking too much of the whole live spontaneity out of live music when it's getting so electronic.
I'm still saying you still got to play live. You still got to do what a drummer does. But, I can change my sounds without changing pads out and without having to change the snare drum. I can change a different snare drum sound just by pushing a button.
Yeah, I mean, triggered drums are not anything new at all. And thank you, Jody, for the call. And it's been going on for a long time. And, basically what's happening is when a drummer is really playing, like Jody's saying, but when you hit the drum itself, the size of the drum, the head on the drum, the depth of the drum would be mic'd, and you'd be getting that actual acoustic sound off of the drum going into the mic and out into the PA. More times than not, a lot of drummers, there's a trigger, there's a little device on the drums. So no matter how hard the drummer hits it or what the drum looks like, the drum is programmed. A computer is programmed that every time that person hits that drum to make the same consistent sound out of the drum. So regardless of what the drum looks like to your eye, it's always going to sound the way it's programmed. Peter Criss played trigger drums on his final tours with Kiss. Tommy Lee has played trigger drums forever. Huge drum sound coming from Tommy, where, playing a pretty small kit, where he's actually taking the sounds that were recreated on the record, and that's what you hear coming out of the PA. There's tons of drummers that have done it. Doesn't mean they're not actually playing. It just means the sound that drum is producing is being produced electronically versus acoustically from the drum itself. I can't say it enough. I have so much respect, now more than ever, for the artists out there in music, and they are unfortunately dwindling, who are actually playing 100% live, old school guitar, bass, drums, vocals, actually singing. But as long as fans don't know or care, it's only going to get worse, and those bands are only going to become more rare. And it sucks to me. But, I mean, all these festivals, every other band is running some sort of electronics. And it is without a doubt a soapbox issue for me, and I think it's got to stop for rock, for the advancement of rock, for the sake of rock. It's like, you got to be kidding me. But again, 99% of people don't know or care. Band sounded great. Yeah, they're going to sound exactly like that every single night because you're hearing a recording. It's outrageous, especially given what they charge. Most of them. You'd be kidding me. Oh, you're charging that and you're not really even singing, really? So much for a live show. So that's why I celebrate the truly live bands, because they should be celebrated. Because a lot of stuff you're getting is smoke and mirrors.